Hello everyone, it's my great pleasure to welcome all of you on our PFC public consultation webinar. Today is the focus on Argentina. I had the pleasure in 2009 to visit the World Forestry Congress. It's one of my favorite events at that time. It was really great to experience the special characteristic of the Argentine forestry, and I hope today we will get a bit of insight of that through the PFC system. This is the webinar program, what we have today. There will be a brief introduction about PFC International by me, and then it will be a presentation of the Argentine Forest Certification System, and then at the end there will be questions and answers. So as an introduction, let me start with myself. My name is Hubert Inhäuser. I'm a technical officer at PFC International. I'm responsible for the SFM-related questions and the assessment of the for national system. This brief presentation of PFC will be for those who are not that familiar yet with the PFC system. The acronym stands for Program for the Endorsement of Forest Certification Systems. We are an alliance of independent national forest certification systems under the umbrella of PFC International. The national forest certification systems are all based on the PFC sustainability benchmark and international benchmarks which we provide. It's an absolutely voluntary mechanism promoting sustainable forest management through independent third-party certification. We are very proud that we are the world's largest forest certification system and provider of 3/4 of the world's certified and sustainably managed timber. This is our global coverage. As you can see, Argentina is one of the southernmost countries we cover. There is still some space for improvement, but we are very glad to maintain this global alliance. The Argentinian certification system was submitted in May for assessment. And this assessment will be carried out by an independent assessor who yet to be appointed. And part of the assessment is a 60-day public consultation period. Today we opened the public consultation. It's available on our website. And we encourage all stakeholders to submit their comments until 29th of July. All these comments which are submitted will be part of the assessment, and the assessor will consider all of them in the assessment report. So having this brief introduction, I'm happy now to hand over the word to Claudia Peirano, who is the member of the board of directors at CEFAR, and to Florencia Chavat, who is the director of PFC Argentina. Thank you very much for being us here with today. And with this, I stop sharing the screen and I hand the word over to you ladies. And please let us know more about the Argentine system.
Okay, thank you, Hubert.
Thanks, Hubert. I'm going to help Florencia here to give this speech. And okay, first of all, thanks everybody who's here, and especially everybody who helped to work this program up to here. We are really, as Hubert said, I'm part of the board of PFC Argentina, and we are very proud with the work that Florencia have done with IRAM on this. So I'm trying to do my best to present this for everybody, but the thank part is very important for all of us. So first, what we are going to see today is, first we are going to do a characterization of the Argentine forestry sector, then the Argentine Forest Certification System approach, the structure and scope of CERFOAR PFC Argentina, and the revision process of the CERFOAR PFC Argentina, the revised SFM standard, and how is the forest certification today. First, so we are going to go with the forestry context in the country. Argentina is it's a large country. It's done with 280 million hectares, and 19% of that it's covered with native forest, and just 0.5 with planted forest. 1.6% are protected area, and the agriculture and livestock area cover the 37% of the land in Argentina. So we first gonna go, we always do this difference between native and forest, native forest and plantation, because they are very different, but very diverse too. So we are gonna start with native forest. And we'll see the area of native forest exceed the 53 million hectares in Argentina. There you can see the 7 regions that are the different kind of forest that you can find in Argentina. Each ecoregion presents the diverse characteristic in its type of forest, in its productive models, and in its social and environmental aspects. It is important to mention that there is a law, the 26331, well, law of minimum specification, I would like to say. Sorry. That is the law that is the basic environmental compliance for environmental protection for the enrichment, restoration, conservation, use, and sustainable management of native forests. This law that stands from, it's 8 years on, about, ask all the provinces who are the owners of those native forests to categorize, to put order on those land use on 3 categories. So this law classifies forests into 3 categories according to their conservation values, and based on these values, establish what time of use can be made of each forest. Those are red, yellow, and green category. The 20% of the forest have high conservation values on red category, 61% have medium conservation values on yellow category, and 19% of the forest have low conservation values on green category. On this one is that the green one is the one that you can do the change of use on the land. Only this forest can be converted to the land uses, as I say. However, this conversation is subject to the approval of the application authority after having gone through an environmental impact assessment and a public consultation with the stakeholders. Next floor. The main products and services obtained from native forest are several, as you may see there, like besides timber, charcoal, fireworks, sleepers, tourists, ecosystem service, and several non-timber forest products, as mushroom, fruits, textile, fibers, herbs, honey, and others. So we now turn to planted forest. In this image, you can have a sample of different realities linked to planted forests in the country. You can see Delta, Misiones, Corrientes, South, several places. But as you see in the next slide, Argentina have an area of 370,000 hectares, 1,370,000 hectares. Most of them, about 80% of them, in what we call Mesopotamia, that is the northeast of Argentina. The main species planted are coniferous conifers, as you see there on the picture on the slide. And it is important to highlight that a large part of the small and medium forest producers complement their forestry activity with other agricultural activities in the management unit. On the last census, they identified about 13,000 foresters in Argentina. That is a very large number of persons who said that they are foresters. So it's most of them are obvious, very small tenures. And it is also important to note that many forest producers, medium and large, have areas of forest and non-forest ecosystem in their management units that are managed with conservation objectives, including ecosystem services. Next. And in this slide, we can see the important range of products that come from the planted forest. Not only industrial raw wood, but non-timber forest products like mushroom, fruits, honey, ecosystem service, silvopastoral system, and in the industry, sawwood and treated wood, engineered wood products, panels, wood manufacturers, furniture, pulp, paper, paperboard, resins, energy from forest biomass. Just to have an idea, Argentina, 95% of the roundwood used for industrial come from planted forest. Just 5% of the industry in Argentina use native forest. So from an economic point of view, planted forest is a very important part of the economy in Argentina. Also on a social point of view. So in this diverse forest context that Argentina has, the focus of the Argentine system is to establish management requirements that verify the sustainability of multi-purpose forest. Next. So, on this subject, the objective and scope of CERFOAR and our forest management standard is to establish the requirements for a sustainable forest management model that starts from planning to obtain different goods and services, including multiple production systems such as silvopastoral or forest honey production. At the same time, this management model implies local development and the competitiveness of the whole cluster. Now we will see a brief description of the revised CERFOAR PFC Argentina system. Okay, so first the scope and standards. The scope on the Argentina system, individuals and group sustainable forest management certification and chain of custody certification for forest-based industry. This is our standard for the Argentine system. The IRAM is, we should first, what is IREM? IREM is our system of standardization in Argentina. And those numbers are the numbers of the standards of each one. So the standard 39801 is the standard of sustainable forest management, criteria and indicators of the management unit. The IREM 39805 is the sustainable forest management for group certification. The PFC, the other one used PFC standard 2002 and 2020 is chain of custody of forest and tree-based product requirement, and the trademark that give credibility, transparency, predictability, and strength to the search warrant that put all this together. Next one. Okay, so this, I'm not going to read all this. These are all the systems that, as I say, can bring the general procedures of these standards, or the work to work with these standards, and is the backup for all the certification system. And what I say is all the procedures that give this the transparency that we need to have a well-funded system. Okay, let's go now to the revision process. The first revision was in, go back, I didn't read, yeah, in February 2019 to May 2022, goes through the first revision. Now, floor thanks. Objective of the revision. Well, the objective of the revision of the IREM standards for sustainable forest was first, update its content to the new PFC international requirement, adjust its content to the new requirement for sustainable forest management, agreed in the different national and international process and regulation that are applicable to Argentine forests, incorporate scientific advances and applicable emerging issues, and consider stakeholders' expectation and lessons learned from system implementation. The objective of the revision has been update and adjust its content to the new requirement of the PFC scheme, strengthen the Argentine certification system, and incorporate requirements that make it more transparent and appropriate to the expectation of the stakeholders. Okay, here again, this is the timeline from 2019 to 2022 that during 1919, the CERFOR Technical Secretariat compiled information and background necessary for the review. In November of that year, request the Argentine Standardization Organization, IREM, to review the standards, and we plan to start it on March 2020. Due to the pandemic caused by the COVID-19, this start was postponed until September 2020. The review process began with an information session where all interested parties were invited to participate in this process. In October 2020, the working group for the establishment of standards was formed. This group met 19 times and in November 2021, approved by consensus the revised standards for sustainable forest management. In May 2022, IREM formally approves the standard and published them, and these are adopted by CERFOAR.
A lot of work.
Yeah, my God, a lot of work. Revision, the standardization body. CERFOAR forest management standards are IREM standards. IREM is the Argentine Institute for Standardization, as we say, and it is the entity responsible for the development and revision of technical standard of voluntary application in Argentina. IREM, in coordination with the Technical Secretariat of CERFOAR, main Florencia, were responsible for revising the standard. Let's go. The standard setting procedures, IREM and CERFOAR agreed to join forces and complement their standardization procedures to ensure an open, multi-stakeholders standards revision process. Okay, so here you can see the list of stakeholders that were invited on that sitting working group. From the revision kickoff session, stakeholders were actively invited to join IREM's Sustainable Forest Management Standard Setting Working Group. 32 applications were received to join IREM's Standard Setting Working Group that cover in a balanced manner 7 of the 8 identified stakeholders. Give a standard setting working group an appropriate gender balance. The applicant organization and individuals are relevant and competent to the review process. Individual applicants have outstanding and relevant experience in SFM processes. The applicants to integrate the standard setting working group cover the different type of forest and forest areas of the country. In this slide, you can see the different entities that made up the standard setting working group. Very diverse.
A lot of people. A lot of entity. A lot of people.
And you see, it's amazing because what you see there, for example, Huatre is the main gremio of workers. There are really a lot of entities that represent the forestry sector on a different kind of situations and views. So it's an amazing job, Florencia, an amazing job. Okay, next. Revision process. So prior to the formulation of the working group, a mapping of interest party was carried out. In this way, relevant stakeholders, key stakeholders, and disadvantaged stakeholders were identified. The identification of interest groups is based on the classification of the 9 interest groups defined by Agenda 21 of the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. The indigenous people interest group was identified as a disadvantaged stakeholder due to the dispersion of their communities, their limited access to the media, and their limited availability to participate in these processes. To achieve the participation of representatives of the indigenous people, the Technical Secretariat contacted the National Institute of Indigenous Affairs, INAI, an organization that represents all the indigenous people of Argentina, and summoned them to participate in the process of revising the IREM standard. During the review process, there was a permanent dialogue with INAE representatives, and a workshop was held to evaluate all regulatory requirements with emphasis on those directly linked to the indigenous people. On the revision process, throughout their review process, the members of the IRAM working group had access to all documentation, citation, observation, working document via the IRAM SIPO online platform. With this online platform, the entire standardization process is managed. In turn, SurfWare created a review website so that all interested parties could follow and participate in the process. This website has an online form to make observation and comments. There are the links for what I'm saying right now. So let's go now to the standard that she work, and we work. I always also help here. Okay, so now we go to the key points of the second version of the Sustainable Forest Management Standard. The biggest change that the standard had is in the structure. We went from a structure of principles, criteria, and indicators to a management system structure with a performance levels that determine the sustainability of that forest management. This change was made to harmonize this standard with other management systems, to facilitate this evaluation, and to provide the forest producers with management tools that strengthen the continuous improvement and sustainability of forest resources. In the review of the scope, we incorporate the multipurpose forest approach. The requirements of this standard are applicable to the forest management unit and cover the full range of forest management objectives defined for it, including the provision of good and non-good forest products and other ecosystem services, and to all activities implemented in the forest management unit to achieve those objectives. Okay, so understanding the context where the activity takes place is the basis for planning sustainable forest management. On this behalf, we start first with leadership. This chapter established the requirement of commitment to sustainable forest management that the forest producer shall assume, implement, and communicate. Second, we go to planning, and in this chapter are the requirement to plan forest management and planning in one of the key aspects of forest sustainability. We also find in this chapter the legal compliance requirement and all other commitments assumed by the forest producers. Third, support. The support requirement implies how to allocate the human and technological resources to comply with the Sustainable Forest Management Plan, as well as establishing the documentation of the system, procedures, records, cartography, and the way to deal with the complaints and claims of the interested parties. Then we have operation, that is the chapter 8. Operation establishes the criteria and indicators that define the level of performance that the forest producer shall achieve to verify that its forest management is sustainable or on the way to it. This chapter contains most of the requirement already established in the first version of the standard. performance evaluation, and in order to improve, you first have to monitor the different components of the forest management units and systematically review the management system. So those are the part. And then, and finally, you have to close the management cycle with the results of your evaluation and monitoring your forest resources that give you the improvement that you need to a continuous improvement on your the way that you work on your do your monitoring and make the necessary adjustment in your gestion. Next. And to finish the presentation, all that we have advanced with the PFC certification in the country, we have, you have there everything. We have 359,156 hectares certified. Distributed in 4 provinces, Misiones, Entre Ríos, Buenos Aires, and Santa Fe. 48% is managed with conservation objective, including the provision of ecosystem services, and 52% with production objectives. In 48%, we find 82 priority sites for conservation. And all these certified hectares involve 20 forest producers and more than 130 local companies, providers of forest services, trained and formalized. And we also have 20 chain of custody certified companies, and those 20 companies involve more than 150 suppliers of forest material that comply with the PFC due diligence system. All this and much more sustainable development behind 18 chain of custody certificates and 7 sustainable forest management certificates for PFC Argentina. So, a lot of work, Florencia.
A lot of work of fun. And that's it. Questions, comments?
Well, thank you very much, both Claudia and Florencia, for this very detailed presentation. I think it was really, really excellent. I need to say that especially I was very impressed by the stakeholder engagement you managed to include, because that's really excellent to have that many people on board. Of course, I understand it was a bit slower, the process, because of that, but it's clearly having the national mandate to have this system in place. Just until the others gather their thoughts, maybe for the questions, I will just have one for you, Claudia, maybe, that you mentioned a couple of times the ecosystem services. And I just wanted to ask whether can you share with us a couple of examples, which are the most prominent ecosystem services you are considering, both in native and in planted forests?
Well, actually, we identify ecosystem services, and we are trying to put that ecosystem with value. That is a part we are not working, we are not having improvement yet. But about the ecosystem, you have, for example, biodiversity. And on biodiversity, there are several tools that had been used in Argentina as biodiversity corridors. We have very good experience on that sense. One thing that is very amazing is if Florencia, you may help me with this number, but for each hectare that you have by other certified Justin, how many you have on conservation? It was 1 hectare, 0.6 under conservation.
Yes.
That was the number, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
48% conservation. 48% de la superficie certificada está destinada a la conservación, incluyendo los servicios ecosistémicos.
So, yeah.
Biodiversity, carbon, cuencas, zonas de reserva de agua, de reserva y captación de agua.
Soil. Soil conservation. The other one that we are trying to work now, that is the carbon part.
Yes.
As a that is one that is we are working on it. So we think that part, I mean, sorry, as a FOA, I work a lot with plantation forest. So all the economical part, whatever, is a very important as a social part. And on the environmental part, what we find out that when you work on a certified system, the environment get in the heart of the way that you work on the way your all your management. And there is a lot of improvement on how you see, because if not, you don't see it. You don't see biodiversity. You don't see what's going on with the water. You don't see what's going on with the carbon. When you are on that management, that you have to see the three parts, you start open your mind and you include a lot of issues and items that before you didn't. And that is the main difference between, I think, the firms that are not certified with the ones that are certified. And one thing that I work a lot is in social sustainability, and what is we have a system of certified competence of people. So we certify workers. And also when you have firms that go through the certification system, PFC, they are more willing to work on those certified forms on labor too. So improve several parts of the management in a very profound way.
Well, thank you very much, Claudia, not only for answering the question, but also how you see that the impact of the certification and the way how it engages people and improve the management beyond only maybe just pure forestry, which is sometimes forestry, I need to admit that I'm being one, sometimes we are a bit narrow-minded, but I think that this can open up a little bit with these supporting tools, what we have and what you have. I don't know if in the meantime anybody would have any clarification questions for Claudia or Florencia. I just would like to note again that the whole documentation of the Argentine system is available on the PFC website through the public consultation. If you have any questions and comments, you are more than welcome to submit it to us. But here again, if there's any questions, we are happy to take them. I don't see any hands. I think it was just the sign that it's not the lack of interest of the participants, but it was a very well done, detailed presentation. So I would like to thank again Florencia and Claudia. Muchas gracias for the presentation. And I wish you a very nice rest of the day, and we will stay in touch then for the assessment. Thank you so much and have a nice day.
Thank you,
Gracias a todos.
Gracias.
Bye.
Muchas gracias.